Hello and welcome to Beyond the Mist, the game mastering podcast for the Mistworld series. This is regarding episode 8, the pre-finale, I guess you'd call it. So this is the one where ideally it will come across as the calm before the storm, before the players set their trap and are in turn trapped themselves. Now, the idea of a calm before the storm, I always feel like, is to be as tense as possible. So not necessarily action-based, but still have the players realize the stakes going in. A part of that will be making sure the NPCs are saying goodbye to any connections that they have. So there'll be, one way I might describe this will be that there'll be a shortage of paper and in the area, as a whole bunch of people sending letters to their loved ones, saying goodbye, giving them final thoughts, saying goodbye to loved ones, and asking the players who they want to send their letters to, or if they want to send any letters out. I imagine at least one will. I'm assuming Henry will. Possibly the others will as well, especially now that Mr. Whitby's been made aware that he's been cleared of all crimes and is welcome back home. So I'll be interested to see if they choose to send a letter as well. But then beyond that, there's also almost each of the players have somebody that they can, an NPC they can choose to either keep with them or send away. So for Mr. Whitber, what does he send his new niece, Zusha, away? I'll re-emphasize, people are going to die, and whether or not he wants to bring her here, leave her here to wait for him, give her enough money to go on a ship back to Bastion and back to the main family, what does he want to do? And see how he explores that. For Astrakhan, her former mentor, Vinkas, who we established is in the area, has been invited to stay on board, but isn't really, down with the adventuring life. They're much more sedate than Astrakhan and the others. So she'll go to Astrakhan and ask what she thinks, given that she's living that life. And I'll be interested to see what advice Danny gives to her in that scenario as well. And for Neely, even though she doesn't have any family, they've just hired a new cat. So I'll be asking her as well, does she want to leave the cat here on the streets that it knows? Or is she going to take it with her on this potentially very dangerous trip? Will she opt to have somebody care for it? Or just abandon it and just kind of realize it's a bad idea taking a cat on a suicide mission? Now for Henry, it would seem like that he doesn't have somebody to say goodbye to potentially, but for me that means that he needs to choose if he's going to stay or go. Everyone else has a job to do, whereas Henry, being a passenger, can opt to just, no, I'm not interested in staying on board, and I'll ask him, does he want to go back to the sedate family life, or is he there to see this through to the end? Now I feel like having, obviously I'm in a Discord with the players, we chat during the week, and I don't feel like I've described the plan very well. Certainly Oscar, who plays Connor, who plays Mr. Whitber, was a bit confused. So what I thought I'll do is I will re-examine describing the plan. So effectively, the plan is that that they will locate one of the cave entrances to the dragon cave. I'll describe it as being kind of like a rabbit warren. Dragons are clever, so they will have multiple entrances and exits to make their way out. So they will send the shining beetle as a smaller, more maneuverable craft into the cave to poke the dragon, and then try and draw it out through one particular entrance. The Hope and Grace and the Cisco, both these enormous airships, will form a wall and try to force the dragon to fly straight up, which will in turn, when it flies out of the cave, sees the ships and then flies straight up, which will expose its belly to both ships, at least momentarily. They'll then open fire, and at this point they hope to destroy the dragon. The idea being it will be just a one and done. They don't want a long drawn out fight. I will describe that the Cisco, the secondary ship, who is named after my potentially controversially my favorite Star Trek captain, is so confident that their plan will succeed, and so confident that they've spent all their money and basically on their weaponry, rather than reinforcing the ship. There are options to do that, to take away from systems to add to another within that rulebook. So that's what I've done to that ship. Obviously, as with any plan, nothing will go to plan. So we'll see what happens in terms of will the ship be repaired enough to be able to use that weaponry, or will the crew be spending that time scrambling to save the ship? Now, what can be a problem with these RP sessions is that it's really hard to know how well they time and how well they go. So I've got 2 encounters lined up ready just in case we blast through them and we have a lot of extra time. The first will be that as they fly out to where the Dragon Mountain is, they will encounter its first line of defense, will be the Dragon Cultist. We'll have camps out. The Elder that they've previously encountered and a few others have been transformed into winged dragonborn who will harass the ships, while the camps themselves will have siege weaponry that they'll be attempting to use to attack the both airships. The idea of this is not to be a very high danger scenario, but rather to just to weaken the ships enough so they're not going in presumably fully fueled, certainly not fully healthed, and just make them realize that they've already taken a few hits, even with relatively minor enemies like these, and see what they do with that. What I'd like to do as well, if we do manage to blast through the RP and the second encounter, is for them to try and set up their traps, so they will be able to enter the dragon's cave, and Astrakhan will be able to deploy her rope traps that she has been created. If not, they'll be done at the start of the next session. That's all good. We'll see how they go. So that's the current plan for this stage. Not much has been statted out, just creating stats for the Dragonborn Cultist and some siege land-based weaponry. But aside from that, nothing too much. So we'll see how we go. I'm looking forward to how this all paces out. It's again, it's the idea of being the eye in the storm. They're about to. The final episode will be almost all action, so this is just to give them that final breather before we jump right in. Right, thank you so much for listening. Have a good night.